Welcome everyone to the Redefining Identity, the Politics of Gender and Sexuality podcast. My name is Jigyasa Arya, and today we have Abhipsa, Mahima, and Bhoomika.
Hello everyone.
In this podcast, we dive deep into the stories that shape our understanding of gender identity and power in society. Today, we are exploring two groundbreaking books that have left an indelible mark on the gender discourse. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood and Zami, A New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde. At the first glance, these books might seem like they come from different worlds. The Handmaid's Tale is a dystopian fiction that imagines a future where a totalitarian regime erases women's rights. At the same time, Zami is a deeply personal autobiographical narrative or biomythography that chronicles Lorde's journey as a black lesbian feminist woman in 20th century America. In today's episode, we'll explore the theme of these iconic texts, how they reflect and critique the gender discourses of their time, the 1980s, and how their messages will still resonate in today's social and political climate. So whether you are a long-time fan of Atwood's speculative fiction or deeply moved by Lorde's poetic reflection on identity, join us as we unpack the layers of gender, power, and resistance in The Handmaid's Tale and Zami. Let's get started.
So, hi, this is Mahima, and talking about gender and patriarchy, The Handmaid's Tale focuses on a dystopian society where women are subjugated under extreme patriarchy with rigid gender roles and control over their bodies. It also explores the consequences of a society that denies women autonomy. While talking about Zami, while it does not reflect dystopian thing, but it highlights the challenges faced by women, especially by black queer women in a patriarchal society.
Okay, so talking about the book, how does Atwood's portrayal of Gellard reflect the concerns of second wave feminism, particularly in terms of reproductive rights and bodily autonomy?
Hi, this is Abhipsa. So from my point of view, what I think, Atwood's portrayal of Gellard in The Handmaid's Tale reflect many concerns of second wave feminism, particularly in terms of reproductive rights and bodily autonomy. During the 1970s and 1980s, feminist movements strongly advocated for control over women's bodies, including access to abortion and contraception. In Gilead, women are stripped of these rights, their bodies becoming state property, mirroring fears of patriarchal control over reproductive freedom. When I was reading Handmaid's Tale, I have seen that Offred, who was the main protagonist, was offered to the commander without her wish to give commander a baby.
So, hi, this is Bhoomika. I think what Abhipsa said, I would agree because as we see in Zami, Lorde offers a personal and deeply reflective narrative about her own journey of being a black lesbian woman. It is like she's breaking away the mainstream feminist movements by emphasizing the intersections of race, gender, sexuality, by presenting her queerness as a vital part of her identity. So exploring how Lorde and both of the authors are reflecting on these themes of gender, sexuality, identity. It is like celebrating the power of embracing one's full authentic self.
Okay, so how gender has always been a major concern in America in 80s and now. So how these book revolves around mainly gender discourse and beyond anything else?
Beyond anything else, I would like to say sexuality, I guess, because both the books, if I talk about, are not particularly talking about gender, but talking about both gender as well as sexuality. So if I talk about both the terms, they both differ in the definitions and meanings. Gender is a social construct and sexuality is a biological construct.
Talking about sexuality, I think in The Handmaid's Tale, Atwood explores how Gilead controls women's sexuality to reinforce patriarchal power. During the 1980s, she's reflecting anxieties from regarding women control over their bodies and sexual freedom. I think through this dystopian lens, Atwood is warning of the dangers of suppressing sexual and personal freedom like in a favor of rigid patriarchal norms.
Do you guys still think there is any change of the situation in the 21st century? Because I don't think so.
Whether answering to that particular question, I don't think so that there is a major change in the condition or situation of a woman. We can say that there has been few changes which have evolved over the time, because if I talk about gender roles or patriarchal society, that is still prevalent today, which was there in that particular time as well. So I don't think so there is any major change.
Okay, so talking about the book, and so how does Zami push back against the rigid gender roles and heteronormity prevalent in 1980s, the American culture, particularly in terms that impacted Black women and LGBTQ individuals?
So, I think about talking particularly about Zami, if you see the title itself, is reflecting the name Lorde, gives to the women who have, shaped her life, particularly those who she has loved romantically. I think the book is a kind of celebration of communities of women lovers, friends, and family who helped her to define herself. I feel Lorde is exploring her early sexual awakening and her romantic relationships with women while I was reading.
Okay, so adding on to that, Lorde also challenges the idea that womanhood or femininity should conform to traditional norms, instead offering a portrayal of women who defy these expectations through their sexual identities, self-expression and relationships. Also, when he centers herself as by his her own experience as a black lesbian, she critiques the societal pressures to conform to heterosexuality and narrow definitions of gender roles.
Okay, so as we can see that in the second wave feminism from 1960 to 1980s focused on workplace inequality, reproductive rights and sexuality. The key moments that include in this thing is the feminine mystic 1963, critiquing domestic roles, the formation of Now 1966, advocating for gender equality, and Roe v. Wade 1973, legalizing abortion and advancing women's autonomy. These events expanded women's societal role.
I think agreeing with all of your points, this is a never ending debate. But I would like to have my perspective about memory and storytelling, because that is something I really felt to talk about. Talking about memory, if we see in Zami, it is not only just about recounting past events, but also about shaping a narrative of survival and self-definition. Lorde is reflecting on her childhood, like the time period when she is coming out to the society as a black queer woman. In the same way, if we see, she's also asking her mother, her lovers, her friends, to see their lives as a larger narrative of black and queer survival.
As we conclude today's episode, we have seen how The Handmaid's Tale and Zami, A New Spelling of My Name, offers compelling though distinct perspective on gender, power, and identity. Atwood's dystopian vision in The Handmaid's Tale serves as a chilling reminder of how easily reproductive rights and bodily autonomy can be stripped away, echoing concerns of second wave feminism and still relevant in today's political debates. Meanwhile, Lorde's Zami presents a powerful exploration of intersectionality, challenging both the feminist and black communities to acknowledge the complexities of identity in terms of race, gender, and sexuality. Both the text critiques the societal norms and constraints that women, especially those from the marginalized communities, face. Whether it's the rigid gender roles in Gillette or Lorde's deeply personal reflection on her experiences as a black lesbian, these works emphasize the importance of resistance, community, and solidarity in the fight for autonomy and self expression. The conversation we have had today reflect not only the concerns of the 1980s, but also the highlights of how these issues persist in the 21st century. As we navigate our own struggles with gender, sexuality, and power today, the voices of Atwood and Lorde reminds us to continue questioning, resisting, and creating spaces for all the identities to be seen and heard. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, keep questioning and keep resisting.